The Teamer Elementals deck, this is a mass manipulation build of it. It still does have Risen Reef, 4 of as an elemental, 3 Cavalier of Thorn as well.
Right, and those combined with Leafkin Druid and that Omnath I mentioned previously kind of just build this elemental package that has been really popular out of the core 2020 set. Just a bunch of card advantage attached to all of your ramp spells ends up being pretty huge.
Again, Lotus Box. This one's Lotus Box was split between the Simic Mass Manipulation and Esper Hero for the Invitational. Collins Mullen top 8ing with Simic. And Rosum with Esper Hero.
They're both just decks kind of in their wheelhouse.
So matchup I would assume that Rosum knows very well.
Yeah, this is one where at first it may end up looking a little bit more like the traditional Elementals deck, but if you end up seeing something like Growth Spiral or any of the ramp-specific cards, then you'll know to play a little bit more around Mass Manipulation.
Our first Risen Reef onto the battlefield. This has been the talk of M20. The 1/1 for 3. You may reveal the top card. If it's a land, put it into the battlefield tapped. If it's not, you may put it into your hand. Actually, if it's a land, you may put it into your hand as well.
Yeah, if you haven't made your land drop for turn and you just want to play an untapped land, boing.
That's the play, and Anthony going to get to untap with it as John Rosum makes Hero of Precinct 1. Now, Risen Reef doesn't just trigger when it enters the battlefield, it triggers when any elemental enters the battlefield.
Yeah, this is in a lot of ways the dream scenario for Mascio, but Rosum just needs to take a turn to commit this Hero of Precinct 1 to the battlefield. That's what lets all of your spells get that little bit of value that builds up to being able to win.
Yeah, turn 2 Risen Reef on the play is pretty scary, and Anthony's not going to let off the gas here. It's Tamiyo, Collector of Tales. Now just a 2 of in his list. We'll see what he names. So Omnath, Hinterland Harbor, Temple of Epiphany, and Risen Reef. So
well, I know what he
swing and a
did
miss on that. I would expect it's Nissa, and it was Nissa who shakes the world.
Yeah, it's just your most powerful card, pound for pound.
Yeah, working up the curve, it would be your play for the next turn as well.
Exactly, and most of the time, you're kind of just hoping that you just name a 4 of to increase the odds that you actually hit something.
So back to Rosum we go. An attack to Tamiyo sends her down to 4 loyalty. Tap land and a pass. Rosum playing some pretty fair magic here, and maybe on the losing side of this resource war.
Yeah, he may have just thought that he was going to get to follow this Hero Precinct 1 up with something like a Thought Erasure, but Tamiyo turns off discard spells.
Now it's everything in Anthony's hand draws some cards. You see 2 Leafkin Druids in his hand. Those are elementals. He has a Hydroid Krasis, it looks like, in hand.
Yeah, Rosum kind of just failing this Reef check. You know, something that's going to be so punishing here.
First, Anthony going to try for Nissa. Here's 4 cards. Cavalier of Thorns put into the graveyard. 2 copies of it, but no Nissa.
That's pretty strong. Here we might end up seeing 1 Cavalier of Thorns buy back the other.
That's not too bad.
That's yeah, it's Saturday, you know.
Here's Leafkin Druid from Anthony. Looks at the card. It's not a land, so I'll put it into hand.
Always been an Elvish Visionary fan.
And if it's not a land, you actually don't have to reveal it.
Exactly.
And I like that. You see, just drawing the card, he drew the island, but did not put. You can put it into the battlefield untapped, as you mentioned. Here's another Llanowar Elves for Anthony. Continues to ramp up.
And now that Leafkin Druid is going to be able to tap for 2 green mana next turn, now that Mascio has 4 total creatures on the battlefield. About to see some big spells.
And Basilica Bellhaunt from Rosum makes a 1/1. But Anthony not going to discard, as he has a Tamiyo in play.
Right, Rosum going to gain the 3 life,
yeah.
but...
Yeah, a 3/4 for 4 without that discard is not...
That's just not the fight you're fighting.
Yeah, and especially because of all Anthony's cards draw him more cards. Even the discard, if it could happen, doesn't feel like it'd be enough.
Oh, is that a Hydroid Krasis in Mascio's hand?
Yeah, he has Breeding Pool, Krasis, and Leafkin Druid.
It's what we call a big fish.
So the land would make it 6 mana from lands, 8 from the elves, 10 from the Leafkin Druid. That is...
You know, what the
not
heck?
bad. Let's just
let's go to
do it all.
14. Let's pay 2 life. Why not?
Yeah, we're about to gain 4, so okay, sure.
Normal stuff going on here.
How much does Anthony want to tap?
I'd recommend
all.
everything.
8 mana.
Well, there's also a point where you actually just get to tap your Leafkin here, or tap your Llanowar Elves for your Leafkin.
Yeah, so it's Krasis for X equals 6. So draw 3, gain 3. Breeding Pool, Sulfur Falls, Breeding Pool.
Oh gosh, I've lived this life before.
Your Krasis.
Yes, I will spend 8 mana and 3 lands. Perfect, just what the doctor ordered.
Another Leafkin Druid triggers Risen Reef, puts Stomping Ground onto the battlefield. So top 4 cards were lands. Anthony had to work his way through them.
Is it Nissa time?
Nissa -3. We'll see what he buys back. Hydroid Krasis. Sure. Love it.
When Cavalier of Thorns isn't close to the best thing in your graveyard, despite having another Cavalier of Thorns in graveyard.
Right, there's an Omnath and a Cavalier of Thorns both in the graveyard, and he's grabbing Hydroid.
Yeah,
Krasis.
no big deal. Ain't nothing but a thing.
Well, next turn, he's going to have 14 mana available. Now, Narset in play from John means that he can only draw 1 card, so he may want to get rid of that.
This is the risk with the Hydroid Krasis, but there's another one in play.
Yeah, you can just attack down the Narset and cast it.
Yeah, it could just fight down this Narset.
Yeah, Rosum will need a removal spell. Here's Tyrant's Scorn. That is a removal spell as long as he has the land.
That card's pretty nice against Hydroid Krasis, last I checked.
Does work. Checks converted mana cost, so Krasis with a CMC of 2. Yeah, Rosum will absolutely shock here and make sure he takes care of the large flyer.
As a matter of fact, I will go to 21.
Yeah.
Shaheen Sarani really just doing work in an Esper deck.
And this is actually posing a problem now for Mascio. This attack here means he's going to lose his Tamiyo. His hand is all lands and a Hydroid Krasis that doesn't draw cards. There is some concern. Now, 3 copies of Mass Manipulation in Anthony's deck. If he draws any of them, he'll clean this up in short order.
Yeah, he has a good number of ways to use this mana if he can just find them. That's the trick here.
He's debating if he wants to chump block with Risen Reef to save his Tamiyo, and I think he's going to do just that.
Yeah, he's kind of priced into doing something like that at this point. When you're kind of just lands and Hydroid Krasis, it's more likely your Tamiyo finds a relevant card than it is that this Risen Reef does.
Yeah, he doesn't have any more elementals in hand.
Right, Risen Reef kind of relies on you finding something anyway.
Draws a Growth Spiral.
Oof.
Here's Tamiyo. What do you name them? He has Nissa Who Shakes the World. Mass Manipulation is such a good hit here.
Yeah, I think Mass Manipulation is what I'm trying to hit at this point. You really just need something to clean up and catch up on the battlefield, and drawing cards isn't good enough.
See what he names. +1. It was Nissa that he named.
Ooh.
Wouldn't have mattered which of the 2 he named. They both miss. Growth Spiral, he
can't cycle Growth Spiral on Rosum's turn.
Right. I was going to say he has to do it on Rosum's turn because of that Narset.
Right. Time for a big fish.
Yeah. Leaves back and passes. He wants to chump block for this Tamiyo if possible.
That's not entirely unreasonable. So if you put a Llanowar Elves in front of a Bellhaunt, then your Leafkin's in front of a 1/1 and a 2/2, and then trade Llanowar Elves for another 1/1, you get to maybe minus your Tamiyo, or you can let Tamiyo take a couple points and be okay.
Now, D-Spark from Rosum may not give him that option.
Oof.
I actually, on Rosum's side, I feel like he missed a bit of an opportunity here. If he had attacked the Tamiyo, Anthony would have chump blocked, and then if he'd found the D-Spark, he could have just gotten some of Anthony's creatures for free. Now that Anthony has seen D-Spark, he's not going to chump block.
Yeah, and the big thing there is that it was really only worth the 1 card, and you didn't know the D-Spark was going to be coming.
Right. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria for Rosum draws him a card. Makes another 1/1. It still feels like, I guess unless Dovin's veto's in Rosum's hand, that a Mass Manipulation will win this.
Yes. Yeah, being able to take Teferi, Narset, and a couple of creatures is just backbreaking.
Yeah. And actually, main deck, there are no counter spells in Rosum's list. So Mass Manipulation will be good at any point if Mascio finds it.
Right.
So an attack from Rosum. Here's going to be a Growth Spiral from Mascio. He can draw a card. Rosum's saying, hold on, I have a Narset. Wait, no, you're right. It's not my turn. Another land. Anthony, you see a smile on his face. This is getting... So what is it? Krasis drew him 3 lands. Then he drew another land off the Elemental. Then his Nissa was 3 more lands and a Land War Elves. Eventually there's going to be a spell in here.
You say that. I empathize with Mascio's situation here.
And then here is the D-Spark. No Tamiyo trigger for Mascio. I think this is about one of his last windows to draw that Mass Manipulation.
All right, it's time.
Did you do it? It's Forest. Oh, goodness.
Ooh, that'll...
So close.
So the thing that I want to look back to here that I think was honestly the real turning point is getting back Hydroid Krasis instead of Cavalier of Thorns. Cavalier of Thorns is a card that lets you actually check the Planeswalkers from Rosum's side, and then also when it eventually gets dealt with, you get another card back in a way that slips through Narset, whereas Hydroid Krasis was something that was already on the battlefield. You're already up several cards. Having something that can actually accrue an advantage, or even Omnath, for example, lets you immediately shoot down a Planeswalker.
And there was also an option from Anthony, right? If he wasn't sure, because Narset wasn't on the battlefield yet, he could have just plussed the Tamiyo again, and instead of -3ing that turn, because whatever he got back, he wasn't casting it that turn.
Sure.
He could have waited a turn. Now, granted, that means D-Spark would have been good if there was one in Rosum's hand, but if he's not casting the card till next turn, he could have waited. Then when he saw the Narset, changed his mind.
Right, exactly.
And now Anthony's going to have to cast this large Hydroid Krasis, but will not get to draw any cards.
Bright side, it's time to gain some life.
Gains 3 life. Passes. Now on board, Rosum does have an answer to that in his Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Also has a Hostage Taker in hand.
Interesting that he didn't just choose to gain 1 more life.
Didn't do
tapping
8.
Hinterland Harbor.
I wonder if there's a bluff he's leaving up. The blue mana can bluff something here.
Yeah, sure.
Now, it's a bit fancy because I don't think Rosum's respecting any bluffs. Rosum's playing a card advantage game here, not a control game. So it's kind of like when you're playing against Jund, where if you remove one of their cards, that's okay. They still traded, so they'll just jam into all your removal.
Exactly.
Hostage Taker takes the Hydroid Krasis hostage. And
on the flip side of things, it's not likely that that 1 point of life is going to be the make or break here, but...
Right. Swing here from Rosum, does some damage. Now, I think we still have 1 more turn on Mass Manipulation.
Yeah, I mean, if you top deck a Mass Manipulation here and you're able to get, a couple Planeswalkers...
The Hostage Taker.
Well, the Hostage Taker is not actually that great because it's Rosum that controlled the trigger, so Rosum still gets to cast.
The Krasis isn't tied to the Hostage Taker, it's tied to the player.
Right. So you would see Rosum able to cast the Hydroid Krasis.
I think Nissa Who Shakes the World was the draw for Mascio.
Okay. Might be too little too late on that, but we aren't literally dead on Mascio's side, so it's incredibly possible that a Mass Manipulation can still come here.
Right. So his forests now all make double mana. He can turn a land into a 3/3. He'll turn Sulphur Falls into a 3/3. And there's just no way he keeps this Nissa through the turn cycle.
Absolutely none.
He attacks at Narset, but Rosum will block with a soldier.
Taking your free kill a creature there.
Well, real question is, Mascio's at 12, is whether or not he can survive this turn. It looks like he can.
With 5 blockers, it would be shocking if Rosum had a way to mop up the entire battlefield. So Rosum at the moment only has 14 total power.
Okay.
So it would take actual 4 creatures dying.
I like this from Rosum. He goes ahead and cashes in that Hydroid Krasis. X equals 6. It'll be a gain 3, draw 3 for Rosum. Gets another token from the multicolored spell. Laying it up for next turn. A lot of damage to be done this turn as well.
Yeah, I think we might be past the point of no return.
Teferi tucks away the Nissa. You're thinking even if Mascio draws the Mass Manipulation, that there's too many 1/1s?
Yeah, so Mascio's going to take a fairly large hit here, it's pretty likely.
Actually, only a swing for 3.
Okay.
And if that's the case, maybe Mascio can still clean up. Right, a Mass Manipulation. If he can take Teferi, Krasis, Hero, Narset. If he has enough mana to take 5 things.
Okay.
Let's see.
Not even, I mean...
Sure if he does.
I'm not sure you take the Narset.
Risen Reef. That's a redraw.
That's what we call a Risen redraw.
Yeah. Risen Reef does not actually draw a card, it just puts it into your hand. So it sneaks around that Narset.
Yeah, I guess calling it a put an additional card into your hand just doesn't roll. It doesn't reef off the tongue, you know?
And it looks like another Nissa to pick up for Mascio. That's not going to do it.
Yeah, this Hydroid Krasis on Rosum's side of the battlefield is not screwing around.
6/6 flyer. Here's the Nissa again. Makes another 3/3. Anthony just trying to survive to give more redraws to Mass Manipulation.
Yeah, this is the awkward spot where you're playing against an Esper deck and you know you can still win, but it honestly might behoove you to concede for time concerns.
How many more turns do you think it's going to take? For how much longer can this go?
This definitely strikes me as the kind of game where if Mascio has not conceded yet, he's not going to until he's literally dead.
Okay. Teferi Time Raveler from Rosum. Puts the Temple back in Mascio's hand. As it's a creature, he can target it. Tyrant Scorn on the Risen Reef. And Rosum, yep, there's the 2 more gold cards, means 2 more soldiers. A full attack.
The Alpha and the Omega.
The Omega attack. Is it it is the last attack?
Oh, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, the Alpha Strike. Maybe the last attack of the game. Rosum's counted up. Yeah, 6 in the air plus 6 unblocked tokens.
There's no way. Yeah, yeah.
There we go. 12. John Rosum takes game 1 with Esper Hero. It's the second match in a row where we've seen a value 3-color Planeswalker deck versus a Teamer Ramp deck. And both times we've seen these value decks come out of the gates somewhat slow, but the Ramp decks just have these variants to them. I remember when we saw Dylan Hand's game 1 last round. He got all these lands out very fast and then had no payoff. It felt like we saw a similar thing from Mascio that game.
Yeah, there's definitely a spot where if Mascio just had 1, maybe 2 more card advantage sources to do something, then it would have completely changed the shape of that game.
One of the sideboards, both players, we'll start with Mascio's sideboard. He has a lot of counter spells. He has some Aether Gusts, Negates, and Disdainful Stroke. Then he has alternate finishers in Chandra, and then he actually has a sideboard package of 4 Legion War Boss.
So Veil of Summer here is incredibly attractive. Veil of Summer in particular is something that is very good against the card Thought Erasure. You want to talk about something that feels great. Your opponent goes to make you discard a card. Instead, you're up a card, and they're effectively down a card. That is amazing. Chandra, Awakened Inferno, going to be great there. If we had seen Mascio top deck a copy of that card in the later turns of that game, that was one of the easy catch-up cards where all of a sudden you mop up Hero of Precinct 1, all the tokens, that hostage taker. It just makes so many of his problems go away.
The Chandra, yeah,
exactly.
It's very good. Do you go for Legion War Boss out of the sideboard?
That one's a little tougher. I would probably lean towards not doing that. I think most of what Mascio's trying to do is naturally going to line up pretty well with Rosum's plan, as long as you actually don't, you know, hit a 10-land pocket or something.
Right.
So I think he's mostly trying to keep his deck the same. You might see some cards just come out that he doesn't want from his main deck anymore. Things that line up poorly against Narset, for example, might not look that great. Growth Spiral is not not incredible here, especially if he's looking to switch into a more low-to-the-ground game plan.
Okay.
But outside of that kind of thing, I think he's really just interested in Veil of Summer as well as Chandra.
I mean, and you're staying away from the negates in the matchup.
Yeah, for the most part, you're not really going to want negate against the version with Hero of Precinct 1. So there are a lot of situations where it doesn't line up well against the creatures, and then also the card Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, can just shut down counter spells in a way that doesn't... The play patterns where you can counter a Teferi are the ones where you don't have a ramp creature. So you're not really doing your thing if this negate plan even works, and you can just get clowned sometimes where you hold up this thing for Teferi, and then Rosum plays, say, a Thief of Sanity.
Yeah, and going to Thief of Sanity against a Teamer deck with such little removal in it, I would think Rosum's going to board in these 4 Thief of Sanity.
Snap it off. That is one of the most important cards in the matchup.
Yeah, he has those, and he can back them up with some interaction that he didn't have in the first game. 2 Duress, 2 Dovin's Veto, and a lot of other options here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I want to kind of point out here is Noxious Grasp is something that's going to be great at answering the card Nissa, Who Shakes the World, as well as some of the early mana creatures. And Rosum even has the option to look at something like Cry of the Carniarium if you really want something that can check all the Risen Reefs, all the Llanowar Elves, and so on. Kaya's Wrath in particular is something that he's probably going to be pretty interested in, and something that's ultimately just a creature matchup.
Fresh off an invitational top 8, John Rosum of Team Lotus Box here at the first win, also from Massachusetts. You're here for Worcester. A breakout year last year on the SCG Tour. He had 8 open top 8s with a win. In under 20 opens played, it's a great conversion rate for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, looking at his facts down there, I'd like to see him do the dance-off in Footloose. That's just... I saw from a superhero documentary that Footloose was the greatest movie of all time. So, honestly, Jonathan Rosum must have been in the best musical of all time if he was in Footloose.
Sevens here for our game 2. Mascio, double Llanowar Elves Nissa. As long as he has the green mana source, I think he'll keep it, but it was only 2 lands, and based on the putback, I just have to think we don't have green mana.
Oh yeah, you ever just look at someone like holding their hand sideways in a way where they're kind of steadying it and lining the cards up, almost like tapping them on the table, and you just know they're going to put it back?
Yeah.
We barely even got to see the cards. We knew, Mascio knew, Rosum knew. They were just waiting on him for
Rosum to say keep.
Yeah.
I always hate the feeling when I'm on the draw. It's like just waiting for my opponent to say keep so I can put mine back.
Yeah, that's always one of the hard things is I don't want to influence what my opponent's doing at all. So whenever I look at, say, you know, the 7-card no-lander, I just want to go, all right, how do I look very normal about this no-land?
I, for a while, just didn't look at my hand until they said keep.
Wow.
You can't get a read on me if I don't know anything.
How are you, Golden Glow Moth guy, wasting that much precious time in the mulligan phase?
You know, if I take too long looking at my hand, the quality of my mulligan decision gets worse and worse the longer I think about it.
Yeah, because the thing is, if it's a tough mull, I don't want them to see me thinking about it.
You know, like a multiple choice test where you'd take them, and then the longer you'd look at the wrong answers, the worse you'd start getting at the test, because then you'd start second guessing yourself. And you look at the question long enough, and suddenly you're just bubbling in who knows what.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm with mulligans.
What we call the Christmas tree. Or the for every B that you put in a row.
Mascio does keep on 6 here. Looks like some lands, Growth Spiral, and Risen Reef, so not a bad setup. Actually, make that Krasis and Risen Reef.
Yeah, and it looks like Mascio just has all of his colors, so that's one of the hurdles that he has to clear, just sort of checked.
Yeah. All the Simic gold cards here to curve out for him.
All right, good mana on both sides. We are really living in Ravnican times.
And Risen Reef to play from Mascio. He did pick up Mass Manipulation that turn as well, so if he can ramp up, he will be able to get there.
Uh-oh.
Tyrant Scorn takes down the Risen Reef. Tamio was the draw from Mascio's. The lands in Mascio's hand?
Do we see a fourth land?
No.
Oh, are we about to see the Flood Screw?
He's got another turn. Here's Teferi from Rosum. Really like a land here. That is an Omnath.
Oh, no. That's another 4. And that's the problem. You'll end up in these situations where you're playing a bunch of mana dorks to compensate for the fact that you're a low land count deck. But then when you board out the mana dorks and creatures where you don't want to see them, or in matchups where you don't want to see that many mana creatures, you just can't play them.
Risen Reef, the draw from Mascio, he draws a negate, says Go. I think one of the issues when playing negate out of a ramp deck here, there's just not going to be a window for him to leave up negate ever.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to jam, right? This isn't necessarily a control deck. This is a deck that has some control cards, like it has Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, right?
Right.
But it does not have as many, say, 2-for-1s necessarily. Well, it's a pile of 2-for-1s, but not those control kind of haymakers you're expecting.
And what a flex from Rosum here. Teferi Time Raveler putting Risen Reef back in Mascio's hand.
Yeah, he knows Mascio has a pile of 2-for-1s in his hand, probably. So
Give
if
him another one.
Mascio plays another 2-for-1, then he's going to have to go to his discard step.
Mascio draws the land. It's some basic forest. Tons of options this turn.
And, you know, he did hit the land here. Okay,
Right.
so let's be fair for a second. This game's not over. We joked about this being a pile of 2-for-1s, but there are a lot of ways for him back into this game.
Risen Reef from Mascio. I actually like him choosing that over Tamio because he was really hoping to find a land on top of the deck.
Yeah, you just need to keep putting lands onto the battlefield. There wasn't actually any value to be accrued from jamming a Tamio there, unless you're trying to beat specifically Thought Erasure.
Yeah, he actually had a full grip, so even if Tamio hit the card he named, he'd have to discard for the turn.
Exactly. You're just not really doing anything that matters at that point.
Hero of Precinct 1 from Rosum. Army will start, followed up with Thief of Sanity. Makes a 1/1. This is a pretty good board. 2 fairies into Thief.
Imagine Mascio played a Vindicate next turn. What do you even target?
The Thief, it's going to kill you the quickest, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's about the answer, but that can't feel very good. Luckily, he does have an Omnath here, which is able to check the Thief of Sanity, as long as Rosum doesn't have any kind of removal.
As long as Rosum's
trigger.
As long as, right? Because when Omnath enters the battlefield, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of elementals he controls. So that would be the second elemental. In a perfect world, this will hit the Thief, but that seems very dicey here.
Yeah, and you know, on one hand, like one way you can think about it is Rosum may have just passed, and it doesn't look good that this Reef is staying in play, but he can just respond.
Now, Mascio had a negate and a land, Sulfur Falls in hand, but didn't play them here.
Yeah, this looks like a pretty big misstep on Mascio's part.
Yeah, we see removal spell. Tyrant Scorn takes care of the Risen Reef, so Omnath not going to be able to shoot down anything.
Oof.
Yeah, I think I would have liked to see the negate there.
Yeah, yeah. And
oh, wait, there's Teferi in play. The negate doesn't matter. I'll apologize.
Oh, you're right.
No way. Right, Teferi simplifies the board and complicates it at the same time. So now Thief can go to work. Yeah.
Alternate arts are the worst sometimes. They're the best, let's be honest. But
Teferi will have Anthony pick up the Omnath. And a swing in here for 6. Top 3 cards for Rosum. The snowball's just begun here.
Oh, the snowball's been going.
Yeah.
This is
getting tougher by the turn.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about being a pile of 2-for-1's ramp deck, all of a sudden that just plays into what Esper Hero wants with the Thief.
Yeah. Does Rosum need more land or more payoff? He'll have his choice.
Even Llanowar Elves just feels like a win for Rosum. That's maybe the best 1-drop in the format.
Yeah, and John will be able to use the extra mana here.
Exactly.
So the 2 Teferi's able to stick before Mascio really got going. That's been the story. Drawing John extra cards, finding him removal to just keep Mascio off balance. Mascio down to 14. Looks to be 2 turns of attacking. His hand. Mass Manipulation, 2 Tamios, Negate, Veil of Summer, Omnath, and Hydroid Krasis.
And at this point, Mascio knows how far behind he is, and he's just kind of thinking to himself, all right, what combination of cards off the top of my library and Rosum's library can lead to me possibly winning this game? Like, if Rosum just draws 10 lands in a row, what sequence do I need to play my cards in order to win this game?
Hydroid Krasis draws 2.
Ooh, not hitting a land here is a really big deal.
Yeah. Means he has to discard. Looks like he wants to discard the Negate.
Easy. Snap it off.
There's no window to cast that anymore.
Yeah, Teferi Time Raveler is not even the second most important permanent on the battlefield.
Discards Omnath and Negate. Got 9 cards in hand there.
Gotta feel good as the mid-range deck when you're like having trouble organizing your permanents.
Rosum tucks away the blocker. We're using the Hero of Dominaria.
Do you play enough Arena to... Whenever I see Teferi Time Raveler roll up, I can hear him go, oh, I've got time. Tuck the Hydroid Krasis.
Oh, and
Rosum
then take
doesn't
it?
even look at the other 2 cards with this
Oh.
Thief of Sanity.
Shocks for the land. Taps. Okay. This is getting out of hand.
I'm prepared.
Ooh, he's deciding whether or not to leave up the Negate.
So are you into GIF or GIF?
It's a GIF.
Oh yes. Okay. You know the stop, he's already dead GIF?
Okay.
Just,
yeah.
This is.
He's already.
Oh yeah. Just stops. Rosum, stop. He's already dead. Mascio already facing lethal here.
And surprise, it's the Hydroid Krasis. Not really a surprise at all.
Activated Rosum's trap card. And gets 2 soldiers. Don't forget.
Has to discard to hand size. Mascio will draw a card. B extends the hand. Clean 2-0 for John Rosum. Esper Hero sticking on that one after the Invitational. He is 2-0.
Good Lord. That was... So Mascio had some run bats there, but honestly, going into the round, we were a little skeptical about Esper Hero's chances, but it was kind of just able to pick through the payoff cards for the Elemental stack in a lot of ways and just have enough punishing permanents on the battlefield to just find those windows of opportunity to develop them.